Welcome to Breaking Barriers, where we explore how mathematics intersects with accessibility and real-world impact. I'm your host, Ross Niblock, and today I'm joined by two incredible educators to discuss a research project that combines statistical analysis, educational policy, and the lived experiences of visually impaired students.
Thanks for having me. I'm Melinda Backus, a teacher of the blind and low vision and orientation and mobility specialist. I've worked with UEB Braille for the last almost 5 years.
And I'm Megan Pierce, a special education teacher who focuses on educational equity and policy. I'm to dive into how seemingly technical decisions actually impact social justice and education.
So, here's the question we're tackling today. Should mathematical content be taught using Nemeth Code, a specialized system designed specifically for mathematics, or Unified English Braille, a newer system that aims to standardize all Braille content?
This isn't just an academic debate. I see the real world impact every day. Students are struggling with systems that weren't changed with their learning needs in mind.
Exactly. What inspired this research was discovering that educational institutions are making policy decisions based on administrative convenience rather than what actually works best for our students. That's a social justice issue disguised as a technical decision.
And that's where the mathematics comes in. We can use statistical analysis to let the data tell us what's really happening in the classrooms across the country. Let's dive into the numbers. I analyzed survey data from Bell and Silverman's comprehensive 2019 study published in the Journal of Blindness, Innovation, and Research. 194 participants were included, including 71 teenagers and 123 adults who were legally blind. The statistical patterns were fascinating.
Before we get into statistics, can you explain what these systems actually are? I think our listeners need that context.
Absolutely. Nemeth Code was developed in the 1950s specifically for mathematics. It has dedicated symbols for operations and clear ways to represent fractions and exponents. UEB, adopted in 2016, tries to use one unified system for all content, including math.
Right. And from my experience, that difference matters enormously when students are trying to work through complex problems. The specialized notation in Nemeth Code mirrors how sighted students see mathematical relationships spatially.
The data backs that up. When we look at exposure rates, 70% of both age groups had experience with Nemeth Code. But here's the striking part. 70% of teenagers had experience with UEB compared to only 33% of adults. That's a statistically significant generational divide reflecting policy implementation.
That generational gap tells a story about policy implementation, doesn't it? The adults learned before UEB was mandated, while current students are increasingly forced into this newer system.
Exactly, and the preference data is even more telling. Among the 63 participants who had experience with both systems, 71% preferred Nemeth Code, while only 19% preferred UEB.
Those numbers align with what I see in practice. But what really concerns me is how preferences change with mathematical complexity. Can you talk us through that analysis?
This is where it gets really interesting mathematically. For high school math, 52% preferred Nemeth Code. For college STEM, this jumped to 84%. For professional mathematical work, 89% preferred Nemeth Code.
So we're seeing a clear pattern. As the stakes get higher and the math gets more complex, the specialized system becomes more crucial. That has huge implications for equity in STEM careers.
Yes, adults were more than twice as likely to prefer Nemeth Code compared to teenagers, and people with STEM backgrounds were nearly 4 times more likely to prefer it. This helps us understand not just preferences, but who's being impacted most by current policies.
So how did you actually conduct this research? What was your methodology?
I chose to do a secondary data analysis of Bell and Silverman's survey. This allowed me to apply statistical methods using Davis's 1989 technology acceptance model to real-world data about acceptability technology without having to collect new data.
That's smart. Their survey was really well designed. but analyzing that kind of mixed data must have been challenging.
I started with descriptive statistics, calculating percentages and frequency distributions. Then I moved to significance tests to determine whether observed differences were meaningful or just random variations.
What about the qualitative responses? Those personal experiences are often where the real insights hide.
Exactly. I used thematic analysis, systematically organizing the open-ended responses. For example, 38% of users mentioned efficiency as Nemeth Code's primary advantage, while 49% cited cumbersome expressions as UEB's main disadvantage.
Those efficiency concerns are so important. When students are spending extra cognitive energy just decoding the notation, they have less mental bandwidth for actually understanding the mathematics.
The barrier analysis was particularly revealing. Teacher lack of knowledge about Nemeth Code emerged as the primary obstacle mentioned by 46% of participants. This connects to broader research by Herzberg and Rosenblum from 2014 on UEB implementation challenges.
That's a systematic issue, isn't it? We're asking teachers to implement systems they weren't trained to use effectively.
Did you look at the historical development of these systems? That context is crucial for understanding why we have this debate in the first place.
The historical context is crucial here. Abraham Nemeth's original 1972 documentation shows he developed his code because he experienced firsthand how existing systems failed for mathematical work. We're seeing similar patterns today.
It's a perfect storm. Policy changes without adequate professional development, combined with the university programs that aren't preparing new teachers for these specialized needs.
Right, and that transformed my understanding from a simple preference study to a systematic implementation challenge. The mathematics revealed patterns, but the real story was about institutional barriers.
And it highlights how technical decisions are never just technical, they're always about people and equity and access.
The statistical evidence suggests that current policies may be inadvertently disadvantaging visually impaired students in STEM fields, especially as they progress to more advanced mathematics. As we wrap up, what was your key takeaway from this research?
For me, it's that we need to prioritize students' learning outcomes over administrative convenience. The data clearly shows that students perform better with systems designed for their specific needs.
And we need to address those systematic barriers, especially teacher training. You can't implement effective policy without preparing educators to succeed. This research provides the evidence base we need to advocate for better policies.
Numbers tell a story, and in this case, they're telling us that behind every statistical analysis are real people whose educational experiences and career opportunities hang in the balance. Mathematics becomes a tool for social justice, using data to amplify voices that might otherwise be ignored in policy decisions.
The research provides the evidence base we need to advocate for better policies and better support for students with visual impairments.
And it reminds us that we need to listen more carefully to the people who actually use these systems every day, rather than making decisions in administrative offices.
I want to thank both of you for this incredible conversation, and thank you to our listeners for joining us on this exploration of mathematics, accessibility, and educational equality.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Barriers.